So what happens when you're playing hardcore WoW and you disconnect? Like, it's everyone's worst nightmare. What's going on? And is there anything you can do that will save you? And related to that, is it the same thing when your network connection goes down as when your client crashes or when you Alt F4 and you insta close the client? Today I'm going to show some testing I've done to figure this all out, and I'll also revisit how Alt F4 can save you from falling to your death, and when used alongside a Petri can get you out of a bad spot. So I made a video a couple weeks ago where I very quickly tested this and I said, sorry to tell you all, but you stop auto attacking when you disconnect. So I hope you're going to watch the rest of this video. I think it's going to be interesting, but I'll give you the TLDR right now. When I tested that with Alt F4, I was assuming that that's the same as a disconnect, which is totally wrong. You do keep auto attacking when your network disconnects, but not when you Alt F4. So there's some nuance to what this means for different situations and different types of fighting. And to really fully understand it, you have to at least have some understanding of the server-client relationship and the differences between the two. And several years ago, I ended up teaching myself Lua and making a few simple Roblox games, which was a lot of fun, and it really helped me understand the differences between client and server. And I like to think of it like this, like there's two copies of the game going at any given time. There's like the real version of the game. It's the game of record where everything is happening for real. And that's playing out on Blizzard servers on one of these blades in their data center here. And that's where every player location and health and items picked up and gold are all updated like for real. Then there's a copy of all of that happening on the client, which is your PC in your house. And when you move your character, it instantly moves on the client so that the gameplay feels smooth, but it then sends a message over to the server saying, hey, this is my new location. Do you accept it? The server accepts it and confirms it and sends back. And then you're really updated and moved to that spot on the server like for real. And depending on your ping, there might be the very slightest delay between what you see on your screen and the real location on the server. So if you're lagging or DC'd completely, you'll move on the client, but not at all on the server. The server just never receives your client's position update, and you just stay still on the real server version of the game. Now, other things like casting abilities or gathering gold must be 100% confirmed on the server before your client will update. So like if you cast a spell, until the server confirms it's happening, you're not going to get to see it. So you click your cast, it sends the message, the server says okay to start the cast, and then it sends the message back saying the cast is going off for real, and then your cast bar starts, and it's shown on the client. And if your ping is like 100 ms or less, as it hopefully is, then all this is seamless because that communication is happening in less than 1/10 of a second. But like, again, if you lag, you'll see either a delay in your cast bar starting, or in the case of like a full DC, you'll see the casting animation, but the cast bar will never actually start. And on the server, there's absolutely no cast going on. All right, so now I think I've over-explained what everyone already knows. So this video I made a couple weeks ago was one where I had two clients going on my one PC, side by side, live hardcore server. I started meleeing on the warrior here on the left, and then I quickly Alt F4'd that client, and then watched the results on the other client on the right. And when it closed, the warrior stopped auto-attacking, and the board just beat on him for exactly 50 seconds until he disappeared. And again, the way I like to think of it is that if the server has not heard from the client for exactly 50 seconds, the character is logged out like for real, which other players see as this fade away. So then I said, hey everyone, confirmation that when you DC meleeing does not continue, so sorry. But right away folks in my guild and people commenting on that video were saying, that's weird, I'm certain I've DC'd and come back and the mob was dead. And then a few of you were saying, no, Alt F4 is not the same as a disconnect. And I gotta say it, I was wrong and you guys were right, and here it is. So to retest this, I borrowed my daughter's PC and I did a side-by-side setup here where I could keep the client open, but disconnect the network to truly mirror a DC. And here were the results. So again, this is two separate PCs, Hunter on the left, Priest on the right. Test number one is revalidating the Alt F4, sort of like a baseline test. So I started meleeing on the Hunter. Then I Alt F4 to close that Hunter client. And you can see that the Hunter stops meleeing and just gets beat on by the boar. Then after exactly 50 seconds is logged out of the game and disappears, and the boar is on the Priest only because of the heal, otherwise it would have gone back to wherever it was pulled. Okay, test number two, I decided to try Alt F4 with the Hunter pet. So we pulled the boar with the owl, no other attacking by the Hunter directly, then Alt F4, and this time, interestingly, the owl keeps attacking the boar until it kills it. So in this case, even with a client crash, you'd actually be safe. Then again, after 50 seconds, the hunter is logged out, and again, safe in this case. Okay, test number 3. Finally, I'm getting to the true disconnect test. Again, we start the hunter meleeing, and this time, just after this parry, I pulled the Ethernet cable from the back of this PC, and right away on the left-hand side, you can see she's just standing there. But the right side, of course, the meleeing is continue until she pretty quickly kills the boar. So very different from the Alt F4 test where the meleeing stopped. And you can see she was for sure disconnected on the left side because the boar stopped attacking her. The moving wasn't mirrored on the server, which would be the right side view, and she did kill the boar. Okay, next test was the disconnect with the pet attacking. So we start the pet attacking. Again, no attacking by the hunter directly. And just after this hit of 16 damage on the boar, I pulled the cable, and on the disconnected client on the left, the bird is now still. And on the right, you can see it keeps attacking until eventually the boar is dead. And the left client actually logs out to the login screen, but the character is still in the game on like the server view on the right until the kill happens. Then actually is logged out of the game for real a moment later. Okay, so then the next 2 tests were reversed in terms of the side. I Alt F4, then disconnected the right side, the priest, so I could test the results of wanding. And in short, really, it's just exactly mirroring the way meleeing worked on the hunter. When I Alt F4'd, after starting wanding, you can see he actually freezes mid-wand animation, and the boar is just beating on him for 50 full seconds until he logs off. And there he goes. Then we go again, and this time we start wanding, and we hit for 47, then 46, and I pull the network cable there, and on the right side, he freezes. But again, it was a network disconnect, and he keeps wanding, eventually killing the boar. And as we'd now expect, fading away and logging out after 50 long seconds. So there you have it. The conclusion of all of this is that if you Alt F4 or like your client crashes or closes, maybe blue screen, it's likely that auto attacking, which would be like meleeing or wanding, stops. But any pet attacking, so hunter and probably warlock pet, would continue. If you disconnect, like have a break in your network connection, it's likely that both meleeing and pet attacking would continue. So from a DC perspective, on hardcore, it means that the safest classes would probably be, of course, pet classes, followed by meleeing or primarily like auto attacking classes. And if you're a class where your damage is always going to be active player cast like a mage, you're basically screwed. So there's the results of our official disconnect test. And as a bonus, I'll tell you 2 situations where you can Alt F4 to your advantage in a couple of scenarios. So first off, at least as of when I'm making this video on Classic Era, an Alt F4 immediately freezes your falling character in midair. So here on the top client, now it's top and bottom instead of side by side, I climb to the top of the tower on this priest, and I'm watching it on the separate client on the bottom. Then on the top client, I jump and I immediately Alt F4, and you can see that the priest is frozen in midair. And as before, exactly 50 seconds later, he disappears from the game. Now, when I log back in, I'm still in that same spot and would continue falling. But this is where you could use Blizzard's stuck character service on the website I'm showing here. You could scroll down to the character in question, click the blue button and follow the prompts, and then you'd wait to see the message on the screen that says your character was safely moved. And when you log back in, you'd be safely on the ground, either at a graveyard or the nearest dungeon, depending on your location. So like the extreme example of this is if you fell through the world and were just falling to your death, you could use Alt F4, unstuck, get yourself back to the nearest graveyard or dungeon entrance, and you'd be safe. A second use is simply with Petri. Now I made another full Petri guide that I can link above here, but the short version of this is that, remember, you're logged out exactly 50 seconds after an Alt F4. You're logged out of the game like for real on the server. And Petri lasts exactly 60 seconds, so no matter what hairy fighting situation you might be in, a Petri Alt F4 gets you out of the game, with a very few sort of nuanced exceptions where Petri doesn't work, but that's very, very rare, like Four Horsemen and other things. But in nearly all cases, you're out and you're safe. So if you're in like a bad spot, like I was here in this horrible cave, you'd use Petri Alt F4, use Unstuck, and you'd be alive again at the nearest graveyard or dungeon, as happened to me. So there you go. There's a few Alt F4 tactics keep your hardcore character alive, and an overview of some testing around what exactly happens when you disconnect during different types of fighting. So folks, if this was interesting or you like WoW hardcore gameplay or random WoW classic exploration, especially like the maps and the models and behind the scenes type stuff, and or the occasional classic arcade collecting video, I appreciate you clicking the sub button. I'm of course always trying to grow my mini WoW channel here, so I really appreciate you watching. Thank you so much. Have a great day.